Okay, let's dive in. Imagine this. You're standing on a bridge, but forget concrete, forget steel.
Right.
This bridge is alive, actually breathing, growing stronger every single year. A real living structure.
It's quite something.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into India's incredible living root bridges. They're tucked away in the rainforests of northeast India,
Mhm.
and we've got some really fascinating material here exploring these, well, natural architectural marvels.
Absolutely fascinating stuff.
Our mission, really, is to unpack how these structures defy, everything we thought we knew about engineering, how they last for centuries.
And the lessons they hold.
Exactly. The lessons for our own future.
Well, what makes them so unique right from the start is they aren't just structures. They're genuinely ingenious bioengineering.
Bioengineering. Love that term.
It really fits. It's the Khasi and Jaintia tribes in Meghalaya. For generations, they've guided rubber fig tree roots, Ficus elastica, to create these natural crossings.
Guiding them.
Patiently, carefully.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. Unlike our modern concrete bridges that start degrading almost immediately,
The minute they're built, basically.
these natural wonders actually strengthen with age. We're talking 500 years. Plus,
100 years.
easily. They can support maybe 50 people at once, totally waterproof, self-repairing.
That was repairing. Wow.
And they exist in, well, perfect harmony with the environment around them.
Okay, that just changes everything.
It really does. And it poses this central question for us, doesn't it? What happens when this ancient wisdom meets modern engineering thinking?
Right?
And how could that completely reshape how we build our future?
Okay, so bioengineering. Let's rewind a bit. Where did this practice even start? Tell us about the origins in Meghalaya.
Right, so it goes back about 500 years, deep in these misty valleys where the Khasi and Jaintia tribes lived.
Mhm.
Instead of chopping down trees for, temporary wooden bridges that would just rot away in the intense monsoons.
Which must happen fast there.
Incredibly fast. They innovated. They'd take hollowed-out beetle nut trunks and lay them across streams. These acted like natural conduits.
Like a pipe or a channel?
Exactly. A natural scaffold. Then they'd carefully thread the young, flexible aerial roots of the rubber fig tree through these trunks.
The ficus elastica you mentioned.
That's the one. And this wasn't about blueprints, not in our sense. It was about patience. A deep collaboration with time, with nature's timeline.
So not a quick job then.
Far from it. A bridge might take, say, 15 to 30 years just to become functional.
15 to 30 years.
But once it's established, it just keeps getting stronger. For centuries.
That long-term view.
Yeah.
It's just astounding. How is this knowledge even passed down? Such an intricate process.
It really speaks volumes about their traditional knowledge systems. The core idea was simple but profound. Watch the roots, guide them gently, and they will grow strong enough to hold your grandchildren's grandchildren.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It wasn't written down in books. It was like a living curriculum, passed elder to child, hands-on apprenticeship.
Learning by doing.
Totally. Learning to pick the right trees, how to manipulate the roots without hurting them, how to reinforce weak spots, create protective barriers. It's all based on observation, respect.
And it sounds like they were much more than just crossings, right? What was the cultural significance?
Oh, absolutely. The cultural layers are as complex as the root systems themselves. These weren't just pathways. They were seen as sacred connections, symbols of the bond between people and nature.
Sacred.
Yeah. Communities often perform rituals before starting, asking permission from forest spirits, from ancestors. And over time, they became these vital community spots.
Gathering places.
Exactly. Where stories were shared, kids played, life happened. It reflects this deep commitment to future generations, a stark contrast to our often short-term thinking today.
It really is. And it's amazing that this living architecture hasn't just stayed static, right? Have the techniques changed over time?
Definitely. That's what's so fascinating. It's not some frozen ancient practice. It's dynamic. It's evolved.
How so?
Well, the early bridges were probably simpler, single spans. But as needs changed, the designs adapted. Later generations started adding multiple levels.
What staircases?
Sort of, yeah. Integrating handrails made of roots, even embedding stone steps right into the living root network.
Stone steps within the roots.
Right, and that famous double-decker bridge near Nongret village. That's a perfect example. They added a second level because the first one got too busy.
Responding to foot traffic. Incredible.
And now, you even see some modern blending. Communities might temporarily use steel cables for support while new routes are maturing, especially with tourism growing. It keeps adapting.
Okay, so we understand what they are, their history. If someone listening is thinking, I have to see this, where do they even start?
Right. Your destination is Meghalaya, a state in northeast India. Its name actually means the abode of clouds.
Fitting name then.
Very fitting. It's perfect because it gets an insane amount of rainfall. Truly one of the wettest places on Earth.
Wow.
And it's loaded with those essential rubber fig trees. We're talking over 100 known living root connections across its valley.
100. And are there some really famous ones? The icons?
Oh, for sure. The crown jewel, the one most people know, is the double-decker root bridge. It's in Non-Great Village.
Double-decker?
Yeah, it's like a natural skyscraper. 2 levels of roots woven together, spanning about 100 feet across the River.
How old's it?
Estimated around 200 years old. And strong enough, as I said, to hold about 50 people. The lower levels may be 10 feet above the river. It's breathtaking.
50 people at once. That's serious strength. But it sounds like getting there is quite the trek.
It is definitely a journey, requires commitment. To reach the double-decker, you're looking at descending roughly 3,500 steps from Turner Village.
3,500 steps down.
Down. Takes maybe 2 to 3 hours one way. It's tough, no doubt. But everyone who does it says the experience is just unforgettable.
I can imagine. My legs are aching just thinking about it. But worth it, I bet. Are there other, maybe lesser-known bridges to explore?
Oh, plenty. Meghalaya has lots of hidden gems. There's the Riddaman Root Bridge near Point Ursula. It's actually longer than the double-decker, about 100 feet span.
Longer, okay.
Then there's the Uminoi Root Bridge in a more remote village.
Yeah.
Kudangrem. Fewer tourists there, more serene. And in Molinong, you might have heard of it, often called Asia's cleanest village.
Yes, I have.
They have the Wathalong Root Bridge. The trek there is relatively easier. And get this, they don't just grow bridges.
What else?
They've also cultivated living root ladders.
Living root ladders. Okay, that's just mind-bending, seriously.
It is pretty wild.
So, for listeners thinking about a trip, best time to go, and how do you plan it?
Okay, planning usually starts from Shillong, the capital. From there, you head towards Cherrapunji or Turna for the double-decker trek.
Oh, right.
If you want something a bit less intense, the Umshang Root Bridge is maybe an hour or two trek from Lake Kinsu Village.
Good to know.
And for the really adventurous, there are multi-day root bridge circuits. You trek between villages, seeing maybe 7 different bridges.
Wow, a circuit. And timing.
Best time. Probably the winter months, November to February. The weather's cool, clear, trails are dry.
Okay.
The post-monsoon, October, November, is also gorgeous. Everything's super lush and green, waterfalls are full, but the heaviest rain is over.
What about monsoon season?
Generally best to avoid it. That's June to September. Trails get incredibly slippery, potentially dangerous. Some routes might even close.
It makes sense. Landslides too, I imagine.
Exactly. Oh, and for photographers, early mornings are magic as the fog lifts.
Good tip. Okay, we've covered origins, locations, history, but the real magic, I think, is how they're made. Can you walk us through that creation process?
Right. It all starts with understanding the tree itself, Ficus elastica, the rubber fig. Its unique aerial roots grow downwards from the branches, always seeking the ground. That natural tendency is key. And the really ingenious part is how they strengthen under stress, like muscles almost. When guided properly, the roots thicken and grow exactly where support is needed most.
Adapting to the need.
Precisely. And centuries ago, the Khasi and Jaintia figured out that these roots have a natural latex. Makes them flexible when young, easy to guide, but incredibly solid and tough once they mature.
Directing nature without harming it.
That's the essence of it.
So how do they actually train these roots? It sounds like such a delicate, long process.
It's elaborate, definitely multi-decade. First, they plant young rubber trees on opposite banks of the river or ravine.
Okay, step 1.
Once the trees are established, maybe 10, 15 feet tall, they put up bamboo scaffolding across the gap.
The temporary structure.
Right. Then, very gently, they guide the young, tender aerial roots along this bamboo framework. Sometimes they even split a root to create parallel supports.
Guiding them by hand.
By hand, weaving them, twisting them together to encourage stronger bonds. And they strategically place rocks and soil to direct growth and create anchors. And crucially, the roots naturally fuse together. It's a process called inosculation.
Inosculation.
Yeah, they essentially recognize each other as part of the same organism and just meld. They become one single, stronger unit.
That's incredible. The roots literally fuse into one. And you said this takes decades.
Absolutely. It's an intergenerational commitment, that initial growth. 15 to 20 years before a bridge can even take limited weights.
Ish to be usable.
Right. Most take 50 to 100 years to reach full strength. And a famous double-decker, over 150 years to get to its current form.
150 years.
It highlights that fundamental difference, doesn't it? Unlike man-made things that decay, these grow stronger every year.
And the tools. You mentioned bamboo, stones, anything else?
Surprisingly simple, really. Handmade knives, machetes for pruning, bamboo is key scaffolding, hollow guides for the roots, stones for anchoring, sometimes betel nut husks or leaves to protect young, vulnerable roots.
Basic tools.
But the most crucial tool, as you said earlier, isn't physical. It's that deep, detailed botanical knowledge passed down generation to generation.
Which brings us right to their architectural, their engineering brilliance. They're not just pretty, they are seriously resilient.
Oh, absolutely. Engineering marvels. They practically laugh at extreme weather. Modern concrete bridges in Meghalaya, they often crumble after just a few monsoon seasons.
Right.
But these natural bridges stood for centuries. Remember, that region gets upwards of 467 inches of rain a year.
467 inches, that's hard to even picture.
It's about 15 times what Seattle gets. Yet the bridges actually get stronger during the monsoons, not weaker.
Ow.
Their living tissue absorbs shock. It flexes with the water's force, redistributes the load. They work with nature, not against it.
It is adaptable design. While our stuff starts falling apart from day one.
That's the core insight, isn't it? They continuously get stronger. New roots intertwine through that inosculation process, creating natural grafts. Two roots become one. It's self-healing, self-reinforcing.
So if there's a thin spot,
Villagers will actually guide new roots toward it, literally patching the bridge naturally. Some are over 500 years old and still improving.
still improving after 500 years. That's just...
Okay.
And the weight capacity, you mentioned 50 people on the double-decker.
It's remarkable. It comes from the roots thickening in response to stress, like muscles getting stronger with exercise.
Right.
And that ties into longevity. A typical concrete or steel bridge, maybe 50, 100 years, lots of maintenance,
If you're lucky.
right? Living root bridges, centuries, minimal upkeep. They've literally outlasted empires.
It's a total paradigm shift. Modern building is often build it and forget it until things go wrong.
Exactly. This is grow it and watch it improve. And the carbon footprint difference is massive. Modern construction, huge CO2 output, extraction, disruption, waste.
Yeah.
Root bridges, they actively sequester carbon. All materials are on site. They enhance the ecosystem. Zero waste.
So engineers are finally looking at this.
They are. The whole field of biomimicry is booming, and these bridges are a prime inspiration. We're learning that maybe the most advanced tech is nature itself.
Which leads perfectly into the environmental benefits. They're not just neutral, they're actively good for the ecosystem.
Precisely. They don't just cross a river. They enhance the surroundings. They provide habitat, trap organic matter, creating micro-ecosystems, boost biodiversity. They strengthen the whole forest's resilience.
And the carbon aspect, you said carbon negative.
Definitely. Think about it. Concrete production is a carbon nightmare. These trees, they breathe in CO2 through photosynthesis their entire lives, storing tons of carbon within the bridge structure.
So no industrial process, no emissions, no waste.
Just patient guidance of natural growth. It's the ultimate green architecture.
Truly sustainable. And their resilience in that extreme weather. It's hard to overstate.
It really is.
Yeah.
They thrive on the rain that would destroy conventional structures. They get stronger each monsoon, self-repair small damages, adapt to water levels, prevent erosion.
Amazing.
There were reports from devastating floods back in 2014. Lots of modern bridges were destroyed.
Yeah.
The centuries-old living root bridges, largely intact.
That says it all, really.
It does. They're truly regenerative structures. They get better with age, need little upkeep, and at the very end, hundreds of years later, they just return to the forest. No waste.
It really forces a rethink about infrastructure, working with nature, not against it, generating resources, self-sufficiency.
Exactly. It's a paradigm shift.
But with all this recognition, all this fascination, I imagine popularity brings its own set of problems, right? What are the challenges now? Preservation.
You hit it right there. That's the big headache now. Tourism has exploded. That double-decker bridge sees nearly 300 visitors a day in peak season now.
Wow, from 50 a decade ago, you said.
Exactly, and that has consequences. Heavy foot traffic compacts the soil around the roots, makes it harder for new roots to establish.
And damage.
Unfortunately, yes. Some people carve initials, try to break off bits as souvenirs, and just general litter is becoming more of an issue.
So what's being done? How do you protect something like this?
Well, the good news is UNESCO added them to its tentative list for World Heritage status in 2022.
Okay, that's significant.
It's been a catalyst. It's led to buffer zones around key bridges, mandatory local guides for tourists, strict limits on daily visitor numbers in some areas,
Limits. Okay.
and really importantly, documenting the traditional knowledge before it potentially fades. The state government is working closely with local communities on management plans.
And the Khasi communities themselves must be central to this.
Absolutely critical. Village councils are getting training in sustainable tourism. Many families now rely on guiding for income, sharing their knowledge directly.
That's positive.
There's a Guardians of the Living Bridges program, started in 2023, employs local youth for monitoring and basic upkeep. And elders are actively teaching younger generations the techniques and workshops, keeping the knowledge alive.
It must be such a tricky balance, though. Economic benefits versus conservation.
It's the tightrope walk, isn't it? Some villages are choosing stricter visitor caps, higher entrance fees to manage the impact.
Right.
There's even a bridge burden tax introduced in 2024. A small fee on tours goes directly into a conservation fund. And they're focusing on improving the trekking trails rather than building roads right up to the bridges. Better trails, rest stops, but keeping the final approach sensitive.
That makes sense. Avoid congestion right at the site. And education must be huge for the next generation.
Essential. There's a living heritage curriculum in about 45 schools now in Meghalaya. Teaches kids the botany, the culture, the economics.
It's a great idea.
Plus bridge building workshops for students, a young bridge architects mentorship program, pairing them with master cultivators, and digital archiving efforts too, to capture the knowledge.
It sounds like a really concerted effort to ensure these last another 500 years.
That's the goal. They're trying to make sure these wonders can keep amazing people sustainably.
Which leads us to the modern context. This isn't just history, it's actually shaping the future, isn't it? Inspiring architects, designers.
It really is. It's sparking a revolution in design thinking. Companies like Terraform One are directly inspired, creating concepts like the Fab Tree Hab, using grafted trees for actual living homes.
Living homes.
Yeah. And in Germany, there's the Baubotanik movement. They create structures using steel supports initially, but the plants gradually take over the load-bearing function, just like the Khasi guide the roots.
Mimicking the process. That's incredible. What about high-tech research?
It's thriving. MIT engineers
Yeah.
developing programmable materials, basically teaching plants to grow into specific shapes for living infrastructure that could maybe even heal itself.
Self-healing infrastructure.
University of Stuttgart uses algorithms based on root growth for self-optimizing structures. Even NASA's looking at it.
NASA. For what?
Potential Mars habitats.
Yeah.
Thinking about how living materials could create resilient, self-sustaining shelters in harsh environments.
Wow. Mars. Okay, so these Meghalaya bridges are unique, but are there any other examples of this kind of natural engineering elsewhere?
There are other examples, though maybe not quite on the same scale of deliberate long-term cultivation.
Like what?
In Japan, there's daisugi, a forestry technique where they prune cedars to grow straight lumber right off the living trunk. Indonesia's Baduy people make living bamboo bridges, rebuilt annually. And the ancient Incas had those famous grass bridges, regrown seasonally.
Right, the grass bridges.
But Meghalaya's root bridges really stand out for their scale, that incredible durability, and the sheer intentionality of the multi-generational cultivation.
It really feels like these structures are showing us a path to a more sustainable future.
I think so. The potential applications are huge. Carbon capture, obviously imagine whole neighborhoods actively cleaning the air.
Yeah.
Infrastructure resilience, roads with living edges that self-repair after floods, bridges that get stronger with storms.
Mind-blowing.
And maybe the most exciting bit is responsive architecture. Buildings that could adapt organically to changing conditions. We might even see the first fully permitted living buildings in major cities by 2030.
Living buildings in cities.
It's possible. That ancient wisdom from Meghalaya, it might just be the key to truly sustainable 21st century cities.
What we've talked about today is just, it really shows human innovation working with nature, doesn't it? These incredible structures, they're proof of centuries of traditional knowledge, amazing engineering that doesn't just withstand extreme weather, but actually thrives on it. And it's truly sustainable architecture.
Absolutely.
As we're all facing these huge environmental challenges, these living bridges offer such profound lessons about sustainable development, about cultural preservation.
You really do.
They make you think differently about how we build, how we interact with the world around us. These bridges, They aren't just ways to cross a river, are they?
Not at all.
They feel like bridges between our past and maybe a more resilient, more sustainable future. Definitely something to mull over.
And look, if this deep dive has sparked something in you, if you're thinking about seeing these living wonders yourself, or just exploring more of India's incredible culture, we don't have a recommendation. There's a company called Five Senses Tours. They organize tours all across India, focusing on really immersive cultural experiences. You can email them at contact@fivesensestours.com. Just remember, that's the numeral 5 in the email.
All right, contact at fivesensestours.com.
Exactly. Or you can reach them on WhatsApp. The number is +919-845-67446. They can certainly help you experience places like Meghalaya,